Good morrow, scholars. Welcome back to Witch and Wizard. Again, I'd like to apologize. I'm being very flaky when it comes to uploading and whatnot. I immediately missed out on my schedule. In my defense, and I didn't mention this in Shiver, I should have. Although I should have recorded another set of videos like I said I was going to, but ended up not because my mom needed to go on her daily walk and I'm not comfortable leaving her alone. I did that, and then I went to bed when I got home. And then the other day when I was supposed to upload, I don't know why, for some reason I uploaded on the day off instead of the day of, and then the next day what happened was I burnt my hand and I didn't want to hold the book because it was still tender. Ask anybody, I'm really good at burning myself. We'll have to do a video where I talk about all my embarrassing moments or something. Anyway, we are in chapter 84, Wisty, page 241. I'm going to shoot for about 23 minutes, I think. I think we can all recognize that rats are not the cutest animals in the world, but until you're 1/10 their size, you don't really have a good sense of just how unsavory they are. To be as up close to them as I was right then, well, personally I'd rather face a tiger or a grizzly bear. At least tigers and bears don't nest in trash heaps. These prison rodents smelled as if they'd give you an incurable disease just by brushing against you, to say nothing of what would happen if they sank their bone-splintering teeth into you. They quickly circled around me as I landed on the heap and gasped for breath and the suffocating stink. There was no spark of mercy in their lightless eyes, and judging by the drool coming out of their crooked mouths, I was clearly way more appetizing than whatever moldy items they'd been finding in this revolting pile of rancid chicken, grease, soup bones, and shredded uniforms, soaked mattresses, stuffing, rat droppings, and unidentifiable brown and black sludge. Not wasting a moment to think about spells or germs, I leaped into the largest gap in their circling pack and sprinted as fast as my aching body and the slippery, treacherous sludge pile would allow. It was no use. Even beyond the first ring of rats, more were swarming. In a moment they had seized each of my legs and had me pinned down in the slimy pile. A lean-fanged creature the size of a small wildcat loomed over me, snuffling my fur and drooling like I was a fresh-from-the-oven chocolate chip cookie. A treat for the Rat King. Are you guys familiar with Rat Kings? It's a semi-mythological creature. I say semi because it technically can happen. In mythology, the Rat King is made up of gigantic rats joined at the tail. Like a dozen of them or so. It depends on how many and how big they are, but yeah, about that many, and they're all connected at the tail, and it's an omen, an ill omen. But it is actually possible for rats to get their tails stuck together, depending on basically what they've been crawling around in. Anyway, I clenched my eyes shut and, well, screamed my full head off. And wouldn't you know it, right then, without any warning, I was sprouting like a charmed beanstalk in a fairy tale. I'd become my full-size human self again. Good news, the mouse spell must have worn off at just the right moment, and my human self wasn't all that busted and broken. Bad news, maybe the last shred of magic I possessed had just evaporated. Good news, I don't know, who freaking cares? I just escaped death by dismemberment and digestion. And then more bad news. My transformation back into human form had not been accompanied by a new wardrobe. Awkward. Oh, that reminds me of Animorphs. When they shifted into animal form and then back again, unless they were wearing skin-tight clothing, they would be naked. Eventually, they got skilled enough with their morphing that they could wear like t-shirts and shorts or jeans, but nothing really too loose, otherwise it wouldn't work. But that was more science than magic. I forget what exactly. Anyway, that's one series I'll probably never read on this channel if this channel goes on for a while. Ask my mom sometime. The way the book series ended, not so much how it ended, but what happened. I was crushed, we'll say. Anyway, enough. Where was I? There I was, lying in garbage, rats all over me, not a shred of clothing between me and them. That would be horrifying. I've read that you can have your iguana with you in the shower, and as long as I've known Iggy, about 16 years almost, because he's older than Leah, if I remember correctly, I don't trust him to not scratch me all over the place. Anyway, I was stark naked, a big pink rat chew toy. That would be ew. But I'd suddenly become the largest creature in the trash, and the rats were pretty freaked out. They scurried up and over the top of the container. I, in the meantime, quickly picked through the disgusting pile for an abandoned prisoner uniform to wear, and noticed the lettering on the back of each shirt. New Order Reformatory, number 426. I finally found a uniform that fit and wasn't entirely soaked through with sludge. I numbly put it on, nearly oblivious to its smell and sickening dampness. There was a set of steel rungs in the front wall of the container, and having never wanted anything more dearly than to be away from this rat-infested garbage pile, I climbed them faster than a bionic squirrel, and vowed to never make another rodent-based metaphor ever again. Are there many? Next I lowered myself out of the container to the floor and squinted around in the dimly lit indoor loading bay. I spotted the outline of a regular door atop a nearby loading dock and hurried to it. It was unlocked, and I slowly pulled it open. Ow, 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 ow. Hand, I forgot. And allowed my eyes to adjust to the bright fluorescent light beyond. It appeared to be a service corridor. Everything seemed quiet, so I cautiously stuck my head out the hall. I didn't do it cautiously enough, though. The 6 prison guards who had just turned the corner saw me right away. 85. Wisty. I didn't even have a split second to suck in rejuvenating breath of non-stench-filled air before I had to take off running blindly like my life depended on it, which it did. Escapee! One of the guards yelled as another slammed a red button on the wall. I wonder if they just have those like every 5 feet. Anyway. Where was I? Setting off ear-splitting sirens and eye-shattering strobe lights. As long as I didn't have control over my magic and was stuck in my enemy-friendly, easy-to-catch and destroy human form, I had about a 1% chance of survival. But I hung on to that 1% like crazy. It fueled me like a cheap sugar high. I wasn't going to do my parents any good if I got caught and killed. I reached a stairwell and sprinted up 2-3 steps at a time. Made me wonder if I'd accidentally come back with longer legs than my mouse to Wisty morph. Hee hee. 1 flight, 2 flights, 3 flights, the boot steps behind me getting closer with every passing second, but I was still ahead. Adrenaline rocks. When I got to the last landing and the door to the roof, I heaved against the exit bar, and then I was out on top of the gravel-covered building. I bolted in the only direction that wasn't blocked by a concertina wire. I don't know what that means, but I have an idea. Stop right there. There's no escape, I heard a meathead guard shout as he burst through the door behind me. I skidded to a painful stop at the edge of a precipice that overlooked the Central Cell block's courtyard. A concrete parade area 5 stories below. The guards knew they had me trapped. My only chance was to cross the courtyard gap on a 2-foot wide conduit. A metal round-backed pipe that stretched across the massive opening in the roof. Would anyone be insane enough to try it? But me? Aside from the heights thing, balance and I don't have a good history. I'm serious. Ask Whit sometime about my one attempt at snowboarding. I have stories like that too. Only I'm not one for snowboarding or really any sort of sport. Where was I? Without turning to look at my pursuers, I carefully stepped out onto the pipe, arms pinwheeling, and started to cross the pit. Stop and come back. You'll kill yourself, one of the guards, his tone not exactly overflowing with concern. But I was already a quarter of the way across. I was making it. I had half a mind to say, "That's our job." Anyway, where was I? It seemed like as long as I continued to move quickly, my momentum kind of kept me steady. I suppose, like with a unicycle. And it probably helped that I was barefoot and the pipe was pitted with rust and not very slippery. Might get sick. I just kept my eyes focused on the far side of the pipe and made sure not to look down, which ended up being sort of a mistake because a rope was fastened around the pipe at the halfway point. I failed to notice it. I stubbed my toe, lost my balance, and fell into space. Yeah, that would be me. Whit. That train is coming. Emmett howled, swiveling nervously in his seat. Straight for us. Fast. Really fast. Get out of here, kids, he shouted, grabbing for the door. Leave the van immediately. Now, now, now. I'm not really good at conveying emotion. So, yeah. Anyway, where was I? No, Margot yelled. Drive, Whit. Stay put, everybody. Nobody moves. We've got to outrun it. There's nowhere else for us to go. Nowhere else? Yeah. The van was actually starting to vibrate with the train's approach. I cranked the key and got a dull sputtering sound. Attention passengers. The train bound for instantaneous death. Isn't that what? Oh, okay. Approaching the platform on track 1. I thought that was actually being said. Anyway. I want to go back to the prison, I heard one of the kids cry out from the din of screaming and sobbing. I cranked the engine again. Nothing happened. Cold sweat broke out on my forehead, small, very distinct worry beads. The train's whistle swelled to a wail as the ground trembled. I tried to block out the screams. I touched my hand to the key again. Concentrate, I thought. I have life in my hands, and this energy must pass through me. The van must go. These kids must live. And then I did feel something coursing through me, unpleasant and weird, as if I'd stuck a wet finger in a light socket. That's not something I've done. My hands felt as if they were aflame, as a physical force. I don't know why I didn't just go like that. Anyway. I forget that it's not mirrored anymore, so yeah. Anyway. Where was I? That hurt my ear, but at least it wasn't as loud as last time. I wonder why it wasn't. Where was I? Flew through my fingers, and into the van's key. I had to admit, I felt like I was a wizard, like I had superpowers, like I was guilty as charged by the one who judges. Suddenly the engine roared to life like it was the Lazarus of minivans. Everyone went silent, a hopeful silence. Of course, we were still on the subway tracks with a train barreling down on us. I slammed my foot down on the gas pedal. The wheels spun, spitting rocks and garbage out behind us. The train's headlight flooded our van, its horn so loud that it filled every inch of space inside my head. And the van's wheels continued to churn in place. Hope crushed. Goodbye, Wisty, I thought. So long, Mom and Dad. Then there was a lurching, the bottom of the vehicle screeching against the metal tracks. We surged forward. Margot was shouting, "Go, go, go!" That reminds me of Nick Totopoulos from, is that his last name? Yeah. From Godzilla, the animated series. That was one of my favorite shows as a kid. If you haven't watched it, I suggest you look it up. A lot of people refer to that as the true American Godzilla back in the day before the second one. You know what? Never mind. Thanks for the tip, I shouted back. 87, Wisty. The rope I tripped over also saved my life. It gave me a mean friction burn, but I managed to grab it as I plunged past the pipe. I quickly wrapped my legs around its downward stretched length. From there, given that my name's not Whit and I'm not exactly oversupplied with upper body strength, climbing back up was out of the question. So I started sliding down, hopeful that the rope would take me close enough to the ground to jump off. I heard a scuffle of boots and Goonie guard voices shouting at one another from above. They'd witnessed my acrobatic feat and were heading back downstairs to tackle me from the courtyard. This chase would be over if I didn't get there first. I didn't even look down. I didn't want to see how far I had to fall. And also, I didn't want to discover that I was going to run out of rope. Instead, I focused on the rows of cell block window slits as I twisted my way down. 4 stories to go, 3 stories to go, 2 stories to go, and now my feet encountered something solid and cloth covered, and I couldn't keep sliding on my merry way. In hindsight, I wished I hadn't looked to see what it was. I wished I'd just jumped the remaining few yards to the ground and taken off running without a glance back. Because as I peered down, I saw that my feet were now resting on the sagging shoulders of the visitor. What? Sorry. Or at least the shoulders of his bloated, long dead body. What? That was abrupt. Chapter 88. Whit. Unfortunately, the charging train didn't stop at the abandoned station we just left in the dust. The race was still on. The scraping, screeching sound of metal on metal made my jawbone rattle. But I continued to stomp on the gas pedal as hard as I could. The tracks cross timbers, making the van jolt unbearably. It was starting to dawn on me that we'd never be able to outrun that train. In a few seconds, it would slam into us, probably spinning us sideways, then smashing us flat against the tunnel's cement wall. We need another tunnel, I thought. I need a turnoff. The problem was I had no idea how to create one magically, and Wisty was busy being a mouse. Not anymore. I couldn't think straight. Every bit of energy I had focused on just holding onto the jouncing, jerking steering wheel and pressing the gas pedal almost through the floor. There, Emmett shouted, pointing. There! Wait, look! I saw it! A turnoff! The track actually split into 2 up ahead. Which way? I yelled. We don't know which one the train will take. Emmett's face was bone white as he stared wildly at the fork. I knew he had no way of knowing any more than I did. The train's whistle continued to blare, as if the driver thought it would make us come to our senses and get the heck out of his way. Okay, I yelled over the crazy din. Okay, I think I know what to do. We sped toward the split, the train's light filling our van like those overexposed scenes on the TV where somebody always dies. I jerked into the right-hand tunnel, then flicked my left hand in back of me. In my mind, I saw the track switch moving just as we passed over it. The barreling train suddenly swerved and plunged into the left-hand tunnel, shooting away from us like a comet. Within seconds, its terrifying whistle had faded to a dull whine. We finally bounced to a stop, but I kept the engine running just in case. My shirt was stuck to me with cold sweat. The kids sobbed and hugged one another in the back seat. Emmett was still white as an alabaster statue, and looked like he was going to either cry with relief or barf from motion sickness. Margot's tense hands gripped the dashboard like claws, and then she reached over and grabbed my shoulder just as hard. "You did it, Whit," she whispered. "You saved our lives." I wonder if it'll stay that way. Where was I? It took us a few minutes to catch our breath and come down from the adrenaline cliff edge. Then Emmett's voice hissed excitedly through the sounds of celebration. This is, the turnoff I was telling you about. His voice was still shaking. We can, take the tunnel to the portal, and from there we'll return safely to the basement at Garfunkel's. He leaned back in his seat, shell-shocked. A tiny voice came from the rear of the van. Are we really going to Garfunkel's? Chapter 89. Wisty. I screamed and let go of the rope, landing painfully on the concrete. As the wind crept back into my lungs, I rolled over to look at the swollen corpse. There was a sign pinned to his chest, written in the large font of the New Order officialdom, that read, "Failure to execute the New Order orders necessitates the execution of he who failed." They had killed the visitor for our escape. I was almost starting to feel bad for him when a half-dozen enormous hands grabbed me. Roughly, sorry, I blanked out. Anyway, the crew-cut, necklace bruisers, hoisted me into the air and threw me against the concrete wall. The leader jabbed a massive finger into my face and literally sprayed his rage at me. There we go. "Nobody ever escapes," he screamed. I'm pretty sure a bunch of people just did. Anyway. My nose itches. Something was broken inside of me. Feisty girl Wisty would have fought. Truant Wisty would have said something sarcastic back, like pointing out that I had actually been breaking into this place rather than busting out. Bad, scary witch Wisty would have thrown a lightning bolt to teach him a good lesson about bullying girls who were 1/4 his size. But my magic was dead. I don't know how to describe it, but it was like that little spark was gone. So what did I do? Why, I burst into tears, of course. Predictably enough, they mocked me. "Aw, the poor little thing," one snickered and then inanely quipped. "Well, one thing's clear. With that many tears, I guess we've been giving her too much water." Which gave me the brilliant idea to spit in the guy's face. In the absence of magic, there is always saliva. Okay, so it wasn't one of my best ideas. "Ah!" He screamed and grabbed my hair, twisting my head backwards so hard I could almost see the tips of my toes dragging on the floor behind me. It felt like my neck might break. This is the part where I'm supposed to explode into flame, but there was no magic. Nothing. 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 Let's go one more. Chapter 90, Wisty. I don't understand it. We aren't missing any prisoners from the cell blocks, the administrator told my guards. He was a neat little man who carried himself stiffly, probably trying to make sure he didn't seem a fraction of an inch shorter than he was. We had 3 transferred to the infirmary after interrogation last night, but every other inmate is present and accounted for. I felt the blood drain completely from my face. They'd injured 3 kids in interrogation. At this point, it shouldn't have surprised me that this cruel new order would torture, but still, my despair sank to a new low. "I'm going to ask you again," he said, turning to me. "What's your cell block?" I was so torn apart I couldn't even respond. He thought I was being defiant, but I knew the sad truth. I didn't have much defiance left in me anymore. The administrator's headset glowed blue, and he turned away. He was getting a call. "No, her hair hasn't been cut to specifications. Yes, it is red." Suddenly, his face flushed, and he stood even more erect as he turned to regard me. "Yes," he continued, "about 5'2" and not much more than 100 pounds, I'd say. Yes. His face broke into a prideful smile. "It certainly is a good piece of fortune." And then he said the words that really rocked my world. "Now we only have to find her brother and parents, and the all-good threat will be history." "What?" I yelled. The guard shoved me painfully back against the wall for daring to interrupt his conversation. "Yes, very good," he went on. "Consider it done, and congratulations to you, too." The administrator's headset switched off, and he smiled at me mockingly. "What? My parents aren't in this prison?" I shrieked at him, earning myself another bruising shove from the guards. "Why would we put your parents in a children's prison?" he snorted. "I don't know," I said, "because you're all certifiably insane." The guards gave me another jab, but the administrator ignored me. Why indeed would we keep them alive at all? You, we need to interrogate, but them, trust me, as soon as we have them, you can officially call yourself an orphan. He smiled menacingly, but for all his cruelty, I was taking some comfort in the fact that my parents were alive and free. Put her in cell block D, cell 412, he yelled at the guards who dragged me away from his post and toward the place where I would spend the rest of my short life. I stared all around the cell doors, their bars crowded with hollow-eyed faces of kids, none over the age of 16. A new anger was building inside of me. Was Sasha a New Order spy? Had he fooled Whit and me to come here just so we'd be captured? They dragged me up the stairs and over to cell 412, which, like all of them, was crowded with haunted, hopeless faces. How much longer would they be alive? How much longer would any of us be alive? Okay, I'm thirsty. I'm tired. It's hot in here. I'm going to turn on the fan, and I need to clean out Iggy's cage. Anyway, again, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry for apologizing all the time. I'm sorry for having things to apologize for, and I apologize too much. I almost said never mind. Anyway, let me know if you guys have any suggestions. I mentioned in Shiver that Miga and I were going to do some sort of podcast Let's Play. If and when we do, I will give you a link. And we will see what happens. If you have any suggestions for a series of books, let me know. I'm gonna go back and check all the comments and see everybody's options and pick out a few, and we might try that idea where I read like a chapter here and there, and we'll see which books you guys would prefer. Anyway, until next time, goodbye everybody. Man, I'm thirsty.